All right, so just had an interesting conversation, and I came up with a point that I thought was rather interesting. That is, essentially, it's that one of the things that I've felt wounded by in relationships with many of the people in my past and formative years, the most notable formative years of, childhood and adolescence and then young adulthood, was this feeling that a lot of times when people ask you in the various ways that they do, if you like them, or if you like what they've done. But the question isn't really whether you liked what it is that they did or whether you like them. The question seems to be more about, the question that's really being asked is, how do you think that I should feel about myself? So it's not really asking me how I feel about them. It's them asking me how they feel, or how they think how they should feel about themselves. So they're not really interested in my feelings about them. They're interested in their own feelings about themselves, and they're sort of using me as like an externalized agent that is supposed to have the authority, that able to assess how they should feel about themselves. But is it really any of our business how other people feel about themselves? And so it's like, and then what's painful about that is that it feels like we don't really exist, because it's like they're not really interested in what our actual feeling is about them, because there's this insulator between us and them that makes it makes the subject about something else, which is how they feel about themselves, which is something that we can't really give an honest answer to. Because, how do we feel other people should feel about themselves? Well, universally, the answer for me tends to be that I want people to feel good about themselves. I want people to feel confident about themselves, and that because I feel people who feel confident and good about themselves make more kind and well-informed decisions, because they're not beleaguered by negativity. And so, when somebody asks me, well, how do you feel about me? But the real question seems to be, how do you think I should feel about myself? That it sort of like splits my mind, because now I'm like, I have to like evaluate what they're, what is it that they're really asking here, Yeah, on the one hand, they could be asking for reassurance because they feel insecure. On the other hand, perhaps they could be genuinely interested in critical feedback and an assessment and my level of comfort with what they're doing and how they are. Or it could be, the other thing that I mentioned, which is what they're really saying is, I don't feel comfortable with my own ability to assess myself, and I've never really wanted to be the one who says that it's okay for me to feel good about myself. And so I'm making you, this person who is, you know, for my, in my example, I am like a child or a teenager, and it's usually somebody older than me, or it's like a peer who has some missing part of themselves that is able to self-assess. It's like they have like some missing element that is a lack of reflectivity, and so they like sort of outsource that to somebody else, so that their entire feeling world is been delegated to be governed by people who are other than them, because they don't feel feeling comfortable about themselves and being that agent of authority within themselves to say, hey, I choose to be confident and I choose to feel good about myself. And that's really no one else's business. But what is other people's business is how they feel about me. Genuinely, because I'm genuinely curious about how my actions and my behavior impacts on other people. And so I'm curious, and I'm not looking for a pat on the back, and I'm not looking for how I should feel about myself. And whatever feedback that I get, I will be happy with, because there's no hidden agenda here to get into a conflict with somebody, because all that is really being asked is, hey, how do you feel about me? How do you feel about what I've done? So yeah, I just thought this was a sort of I haven't heard it talked about, so I thought it was an interesting thing to bring up and to record and keep for the records, for my personal records, for records available on YouTube. Anyhow, have a good one.